Success you carry your weight. There ain't no time to debate. You gotta push through life. All my life, I call it how I see it, just because you need it. All my life, every day and every night we gotta fight. Yeah, we gotta fight it. Fighting for success.
All right, everybody. I'm here with a special guest to me for many reasons, but we'll explain that just in a little bit. But this is part of our College Corner episodes, and this guy is setting the world on fire, in my opinion. He's doing good things already, so I'm excited to introduce him, excited to get into his story a little bit. Without further ado, I'm here with Silas Allred.
What's up?
What's up? I feel like I know you.
Yeah, it's like we're family or something.
Exactly.
Crazy.
Yeah, so we've been wanting to get you on and for a minute, but obviously we're going to get to why we waited a little bit to maybe have you on. But out of the gate, I know your backstory, but I'm going to ask questions as if I didn't know it, because I want people that are listening to kind of get to know you before you are the man with the mustache and and all those things. Going back to your childhood, where did you grow up? What was your childhood like? And give me a little of that story.
Yeah, so I grew up in a little town called Milton, Indiana. My mom and my dad separated super early. Don't really remember too much of them being together. Yeah, it was a super different childhood. My dad wasn't around a lot. He was in prison for the first couple years of my life, and then we got out, living kind of an ulterior lifestyle, doing the wrong things. And just was with my mom. Had a brother who's a year older than me. We have a pretty cool relationship. Not super close, but it's special. Then, as I continued to grow up and develop, I kind of longed for a relationship with my dad, and we kind of ended up connecting. When I was around 8 or 9 years old, he got more involved, especially with sports and stuff. And then when I was 13, I wanted to live with him, so I ended up moving in with him, and then, really dove in headfirst into sports, athletics, wrestling especially, and then, kind of developed from there.
So growing up, obviously, you said you kind of a different upbringing. Dad's kind of doing his thing, in and out of a little bit of trouble. Mom's, trying to, raise children and find her way. What was childhood like? Was it rough childhood? Was it a lot of adversity? What was that like? Yeah,
it was tough. A lot of adversity. She ended up marrying another guy. Won't share his name, but not a great guy. He was in all the wrong things as well. Drugs, alcohol, in and out of jail. Would put his hands on my mom and me and my brother. Just, not a great man to be around, not a great man to be raised by. It was tough. Had to grow up really early from a young age. Right. Was very much like a protector, wanted to look out for my mom, my brother, make sure everyone else is okay. Really, really forced me to make a lot of mature decisions and mature choices when I was young. I have those vague memories of when I was younger, like waking up to get ready for school. And at this time I had a little sister, and it was like, I got to get ready to go to school, but my mom's at work, stepdad's nowhere to be found. I don't want to leave them here by themselves. So it's like, what do I do? And, I ended up having to walk out the door at like 7:05 and sprint to get to my bus. And my sister's at the house by herself. And, on the way to school, I'm sitting there crying, like, I hope she's okay. And I get to school, and then principal calls me and it's like, hey, I just want you to know your mom called and said she got home right after you guys left and your sister's fine and she was there and stuff. So it's like, just stuff like that, kids shouldn't have to like worry about who's going to be there. But, stuff that I had to worry about because I felt an obligation to be there for everybody, make sure everyone was okay.
So, that's tough. I think back to my childhood, and it couldn't be polar opposite, in the sense that I had the opportunity to be a kid and an opportunity to, in a lot of ways, have little to no responsibility. Were you ever able to kind of get into that kid mode early on?
There were moments when I was young where, he would be away for a long time, and my mom, we have weekends, and she'd be with the girls, and I'd go out and, play like any other kid would play, get all my friends together. We'd play football for 8 hours a day on a weekend, and, come back, I'd run inside, chug a glass of milk, and be back out, doing the same thing all over again. So, there was times when I was, would get to be a kid and get to not worry about things and live and, enjoy life. But no, when I was young, there was a whole lot of responsibility that I wouldn't get put on me, but I put on myself, wanting to be there for everybody. And it's just, I don't know, something I always kind of embraced, I never really looked at it as something that kind of held me back or was a negative, but was kind of like an opportunity.
Yeah. Now, when you found sports, was that more of a you kind of getting to explore something that was more fun for you? Was sports an outlet for you?
Yeah, definitely. It was super fun. I've always been super competitive. So yeah, I loved sports from the aspect of being able to compete, being able to do stuff with friends and get kind of, to shine and get some attention because, when you're dealing with those kind of things at home, you don't really get a lot of attention, especially positive attention. It's always like, you're just all kind of existing together. When mom's around, she's focused on the kids, and me and my brother, we're pretty self-sufficient. We go and do our own thing. So getting out like on the athletic field and being able to perform at a high level, whether it was baseball, football, whatever, I always loved like the praise that my coach would give me and, that kind of attention. It was always like, it felt really good to me because I didn't get any of it, especially when I was really young until my dad was around when he started giving it to me. So
he comes back in the picture. You said around 13, and was that right? You said you moved in with him at 13?
Yeah, 13 is when we got super close, and
Yeah.
I moved in with him. But prior to that, he was around, and he was at every sporting event, and I'd go see him like every other weekend and like on Wednesdays. But yeah, we got really close and got super involved when I was like 13.
And he was an athlete as well?
Yeah. He was a stud.
Yeah, so you guys had that connection. So that was kind of what brought the relationship closer, you think, sports?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, besides like our faith and, our shared beliefs and values, like sports was the glue that held our relationship together. We were both, very competitive people. I mean, we would lift weights together. When I played baseball, he would probably throw me 200-300 pitches a day, just batting practice. We bonded super heavily over sports for sure. Yeah. And
you played all the what sports did you play?
Everything. When I was young, I played everything. I was basketball, football, baseball. Then I got into wrestling too. I bounced around it all. I ended up really focusing hard on baseball and wrestling. Football was fun with friends. Basketball kind of fell out the picture. But yeah, it ended up being baseball and wrestling that were kind of my sports for sure.
When did you find wrestling? How old were you, and what was that story?
Yeah, so I was actually in kindergarten when I first heard about wrestling. I was at a diner with my mom and my brother, and this woman approaches us, and she's like, "Man, you got some good-looking boys," talking to my mom. My mom was like, "Oh, thank you, I appreciate it." She goes, "You ever thought about getting them into wrestling?" And my mom kind of looked, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, I love wrestling." Like I'm thinking WWE. I'm like, let's get this, like John Cena, choke slams, all this. Like that's freaking sick. And I was like, "Mom, I want to do it." And my brother at the time, he was like, "Yeah, I'll do it too." And we went and got into it, and it was the furthest thing from what I thought it was going to be.
Mm-hmm.
I show up, and I'm getting double-legged and headlocked, and I'm just like, what's going on? And, we go to our first competition like a month later, and my brother, gets like third, and they're all like happy. I'm like, "Hey, your first competition, you get third, great job." I wrestled 3 matches, got headlocked 3 times and stuck. I was on the mat maybe 30 seconds, and I was just like, I hate this. This is awful. But I was like, but man, I can't let Malcolm be better than me at this. Can't let my brother be better than me. So, I was like, let's figure out how to get good. So, that competitive spirit from early on, really kind of motivated me and helped push me. I guess you could take a certain level of pride too, like wanting to be great at something and not, get pinned.
How long did it take you to kind of find your rhythm in wrestling?
Oh, it took me a long time. Yeah, oh shoot. I think second grade is when I first thought I could be good at this because, I wrestled kindergarten, first grade, and would get beat pretty consistently by a lot of the same guys. And then second grade went to ISWA State, Indiana State tournament, local thing. And there's this kid there. His name was Chris Wilkerson, and he had just put it on me every single time he wrestled up to that point. And I remember I was like, "Hey, I won my first match. I was like, 'Hey, Mom, if I beat him, will you buy me a slushie?' She's like, 'Yes, I'll get you a slushie if you beat him.' And I was like 0-6 against him that year. So we go out and wrestle, and I beat him like 8-2, smashed him. And I freaking get a slush, I'm all hype. I'm like, "Man, I beat him. Like, that's crazy. I wrestled really well." And then my next match ended up winning a heater, won like 13-12, like on a last second reversal. My dad thought I was going to lose, so like he threw his hat down and looked up, and I get a reversal and win with like 3 seconds left. So now we're all hype, and then go in the finals, and it's against a kid who I beat pretty consistently. So I beat him, end up winning a ICWA state title as a second grader. And man, my dad's all hype. My mom's all excited, and I was like, "Wow, I'm the best second grader in the state," And I go back to school, and everyone else is like, all like, "Silas, I heard you won state." And there's like a little newspaper article and stuff. And at that point in my life, that was like, nothing gets bigger than this. This is the best thing that's ever happened, So
is that what it made it stick for you? Was winning? Like,
yeah, I mean, winning felt good. The praise, like I said, like I said early on, I didn't get a lot of like affirmations or attention. Like every little kid wants to hear like, I'm proud of you, great job, you did so good, like all that stuff. And I didn't really get it. Like I said, my mom, a lot of her attention was like on providing, making sure we were taken care of, working a lot. When she wasn't working, she was doing stuff around the house. So we didn't get a lot of those like emotional, needs met per se. So, I started getting that from my dad. And then, when like my coaches or, people in school, whatever, when they'd come up to me and tell me like, man, you did awesome. Like you're really good at wrestling. You're this. Like I fed on that. I loved that. And that was like motivation. Like I want to get even better. I want everyone to tell me I'm great. I want the whole world to think I'm great. So that was really pushed me earlier on. It was meeting this like need that I had almost inside.
Yeah. So early on you find success, but you've not always been the shredded Silas Allred. Were you, what weights did you wrestle? What you look like? Because I mean, we got some young kids that maybe watch this and they're like, well, that's easy for him to say, look at him. It wasn't always the case for you.
Yeah, when I was in second grade, I won state at Bantam 90.
Bantam 90.
I was a 90-pound 8-year-old. It like a bowling ball. When you push me, I wouldn't fall. I just roll right back to my feet. Gosh. It was impressive. Yeah. So, and then, I mean, that continued. I didn't lean out until I was in 7th grade. And, I was in 6th grade. I wrestled 145 pounds. And then starting 7th grade year, middle school football, I was 165 pounds. And then, man, like, it's funny. Early on, my brother, he was not very competitive, but he was always like, motivation. He got better grades than me. I wanted to get all A's too. I got A's and B's. He got all A's, so I wanted to, catch him there. And then he always had a 6-pack. It's crazy. He has the most insane metabolism. Eats whatever he wants and just stays shredded. And I was like, I want a 6-pack so bad. And my dad, we'd go work out. He'd take pictures of Malcolm and be like, look at those abs. He'd take pictures of me and be like, Silas, your arms are getting bigger. And I'm like, man, get off me. So. I started waking up every day before school and running on the treadmill. I'd run like 2 miles every single day, and I was just like, I want to get abs so bad. And so after like 3 months of doing it, our treadmill broke, stopped working. So I stopped running, but I'd lost like 23 pounds. And then I wrestled 145 that year too. So 6th grade to 7th grade, wrestled 145 both years. And I really leaned out. And I started getting, a little abs poking through, had a little 6-pack, and I was like, let's go. Like, this is what I wanted. And then, wrestling, I started really to develop. My feet got quicker. I got stronger, a little more athletic. And I just really started to become kind of the wrestler I am now. Then my 8th grade year, I got up to 160 and was still put together pretty well. And then I really took off. Yeah,
I remember to me, it's like one of these, you see photos, I've kind of known you throughout your career. I started kind of knowing who you were in the middle school realm. But I remember seeing a photo of you, and I think you were 7th or 8th grade, but you had your shirt off and you were flexing your abs. So it all makes sense now that the abs were the motivation. That's what kept you going was the abs. Yeah, and I know the photo you're talking about. I think I'm wearing yellow Shenandoah shorts for the high school I went to, and this was I hadn't like showed my dad my stomach for I don't know how long, and it was after like a few months of doing this, and I went in my bedroom and I was like, my abs are gonna be huge. And I did like 200 crunches. I was doing jumping jacks, whatever. He's like, Silas, what are you doing? And I was like, I'll be out in a second. And I was just push-ups, like I was banging it out. Then I walk out, I said, Dad, check this out. And I go, and he's like, whoa, dude, you look freaking ripped. I'm like, I know. Yeah. He's like, take a picture, post it. I want the world to see this. I remember that. That's the photo. And and it's me like double bicep flexing forward, like straight face, like mean mugging. Yes. With like my stomach flexed. And I'm like, that is the most sick photo I've ever seen in my entire life. I think that kind of like the photo you have right now, I think that would be such a sick throwback photo of the Allred. That would be dope. I think we should do it for sure. So obviously you said getting that, the unscratchable itch scratched of the, hey, I mean something to someone, getting the praise. That was it. It was the physical, I want to develop my body. I want to be bigger, stronger, faster, more athletic. That was it. The wins helped. Going into middle school, what kind of wrestler are you? You're winning most of your stuff at that point? No. So in 6th grade, So after 2nd grade, did you kind of like fall off, or what happened? Yeah, so 2nd grade, I developed a little bit, whatever was decent. And then I wrestled again in 3rd grade and was just kind of like so. Because the way that like weight classes work, obviously, like with Bantam, you have 2 years of being Bantam. So as a first grader, it was my first year Bantam. As a second grader, it was my second year Bantam. And then you move up to a different, like, I don't know what you'd call it, age division. Yeah.
And I was the first year of that, so I go and I wrestle, and I get kind of put on by guys who are all a year older than me. So, yeah, I didn't have a really good year. Then all of a sudden, all my buddies are playing basketball. I'm like, I want to play basketball with my friends. So I think I wrestled a little bit in 4th grade, but like no big tournaments.
Right.
I just played basketball. And then as a 5th grader, I played basketball again, didn't really wrestle at all. And then I went to state still because I was like, I want to still go compete at state, not having wrestled at all. And I got like 5th, and I was so mad. I was like, are you freaking kidding me? Like, and I was ticked. My dad's like, dude, you haven't wrestled at all, and you came and got 5th in the state. Like, that's pretty good. I was like, no, it's not. These freaking kids are beating me. And I was, all upset about it. And then, I was like, you know what? I think I need to wrestle. Like, I think basketball is not for me, So I kind of really decided to wrestle my 6th grade year. And I was
grade was
like, no basketball, let's wrestle.
Okay.
And then all I had was a headlock, dude. I headlocked everybody. I think that I went like 15 and 15. I was right around 500 with like 13 pins by headlock. It was like I'd be on bottom, reaching back, grabbing guys' head, throwing it through. Like, it was just ridiculous. So yeah, headlocked everybody in 6th grade. 7th grade, started to develop a couple leg attacks, get a little bit better. Had a couple of coaches who came in and really started working with me, and helped me wrestle a lot better. And then 8th grade year, man, really took off. Bought in super hard, did a ton of stuff in the off season. I guess it would have been my 7th grade summer going into my 8th grade year. Really, really developed. 8th grade year, man, dominated everybody in middle school. Really put it on guys. And then 8th grade summer, again, I had a really good summer, really big summer going into my freshman year.
Yeah. So going into your starting over in your freshman year, I mean, I know your coaching staff and I know what you got going on. You don't come from a big area. You're from a small town. What's your mentality coming as a freshman? I mean, have you already wrestled a lot of these kids that are, ranked in the state or in the nation? How are you feeling coming as a freshman?
I had a lot of people in my ear telling me that I was going to do a lot of good things and that I was going to accomplish a lot. So I had a ton of confidence. I thought that I could really shock the world and be super special, as a freshman, as a young kid. And
why? Just because of the confidence of people, or people talking to you?
Yeah. Like, my coaches told me I was going to be great. My dad told me I was going to be great. Again, had wrestled a couple of national tournaments, beat a couple good guys. And then, the national stuff, like the coaches wouldn't tell me who I was wrestling. Like, hey, let's just go out here and compete. And, even matches that I'd lose like, 5-3, whatever. And like, hey, you just lost to like a Kentucky state champion 5-3. And I was like, what? Like, that's crazy. I'm not even a freshman yet. I'm going into my freshman year. So that stuff was really motivating to me and made me really start to believe in myself. And, self-belief, like that's.
I was going to ask, huge. How much is that for you?
Yeah, it's massive. Like if you don't believe you're going to achieve it, then, you might as well not even try.
Right.
Like you have to, like that undying belief in yourself of what you can accomplish. Like that's everything, Yeah, I mean, if you put a limit on what you think you can do, you put a limit on what you can do.
Right.
It's that
for
quote.
Sure.
So
coming in your freshman year, you have a lot of self-belief. You hit the mat. You have quite a bit of success. What's your freshman year look like?
Yeah, I beat everybody. I was beating a ton of guys. It was super, man, like I said, confidence was unwavering, man. I was smashing people, putting it on guys. Didn't really have any super competitive matches. I think I may have bonus pointed everybody. Maybe
what was your weight your freshman year?
I wrestled 170.
170.
So maybe, a couple matches I won by decision, but I pretty much bonus pointed everybody. And then, Indiana's unique where, there's only one state championship. And then our semi-state, before state, you have to win your first 2 matches. There are no wrestlebacks. So either you win your first 2 and you make it or you're out. And I won my first match, pinned the guy. Then my second match, man, I go out, take him down easy, cut him. Then hit a high C and let my head drop and the guy cradles me. Real long lanky guy cradles me, puts me right back, gets back points, and then I'm like a deer in headlights. All of a sudden, all that confidence that I'd had from never, being put in a bad situation, gone.
This is the first time you've been behind all year.
First time I've been behind all year. First time that I dealt with any adversity in a wrestling match all year. I've had to grind a couple matches and, work for bonus points, but never like, oh my gosh, this is bad.
Right.
So I look up and I'm down, 6-2 at this point, and I'm like, holy crap, get away, down 6-3, and now I'm just diving in on shots. No good setups. Everything's panicky. Everything's like sporadic, and I end up losing 7-6. And that gutted me. Like that was like, the most gut-wrenching thing because I had all of these like high hopes. I'm the undefeated freshman, haven't lost a single match, 41 wins. Like this dude's, a wrecking ball. And now I'm 41-1, didn't make it to state, and it's like, it was heartbreaking.
Yeah.
And I remember that being so much motivation for me going into the offseason. Like, this is never going to happen again. Like, I deserved that match. And, I kind of gave it away because I panicked,
Yeah, I was at the match. I was there. Had pretty much like everybody's feeling was that you were this, again, you're this super freshman. And for whatever reason, and it's interesting about the confidence thing we're talking about, it's like when you buy in, you're the competitor, people follow that. Like we all were just like, this kid's going to win, so even though at that level, the semi-state, we're watching it, everybody's good. Do you think whenever you got in that position, because had you been in some grinding matches earlier in the year, do you think that it would have felt different at semi-state if you would have been, 1 point, 2 point wins?
Yeah, 1,000%. Even if I would have lost, even if I would have lost early on in the season, and taken my first lump like that, even that would have been, a difference maker. You have to experience some adversity and experience some real anxiety in a match, and be able to overcome it or, succumb to it and then figure out how to overcome it to get used to it. It doesn't matter what you go through in practice. You cannot replicate the same anxiety and the same feelings and emotions that you feel when you're actually in the match, when you're in the fire. There's no way of replicating it except for getting those matches. So strength of schedule would have been, great. We had a pretty tough schedule, but again, I was ranked 4th in the state, and I probably was one of the 4th or 5th best guys in the state. And, I made a mistake and put myself in the situation that, at semi-state against a guy who I was better than, but it happens. And, I think if I wrestle some tougher guys who give me a little bit different feel, then I could have, experienced, those emotions, that anxiety earlier on in the season and, had a chance to kind of develop and grow through that.
Sure.
So,
yeah. And obviously this whole podcast is kind of talks about the sport of wrestling or combat sports in general and how it mirrors life. And I think, even what you're saying there, it's we have to put ourselves in situations and have, you say, tougher schedule. In life, it means we need to put ourselves in circumstances that are harder than our daily life so we can grow. We got to get to that place where we take the L's or we take the close calls in our life so we can grow to that next level, because if we don't, when we get into a situation that's tight or we're struggling, we will make those mistakes. We will fall. And I think we need to learn that as people, and even those that are in the combat sport. It's don't stay in the safe. It means nothing to be undefeated in life if you've taken zero risk. And so I just, want to encourage people that this applies to your life, regardless if you're on the mat, you're in a ring, or you're in a business, or you're in marriage, or whatever. You need to be the guy that's pushing yourself beyond your limits so that you can grow each and every day. And then on top of that, after you do lose, like you said, you took the loss, I think we also got to do what you did, is go back to the drawing board and say, okay, this isn't going to happen again. How can I get better? So that I always want to speak to that as life,
No, it's huge. Yeah, the most successful people aren't afraid to fail, and a lot of times they're the ones who failed the most, and they're great at failing. And that's the incredible thing. It's my dad always told me losing was a mindset. When you lose a wrestling match, that's a mindset. If you lose that match and you pout about it and you're upset and you feel sorry for yourself, yeah, you lost and that's on you. But if you lose a wrestling match and you're like, man, how can I get better? How can I grow? What did I do wrong that I don't want to do wrong next time? That's a winning mindset. That's a growth mindset. And if you can embrace that mindset, man, you're a champion, and you're not actually losing that match. You're learning from that match. L's aren't losses. They're learning opportunities. Mm-hmm. And that's what he'd tell me all the time. And, it's stuck. It's every time I lose, it's always what did I do wrong? Where can I grow? Where can I get better? And now that mindset has transcended just losing, but it's part of my winning also. It's I won that match, but I wanted to finish cleaner, I wanted to score more points. I wanted to get a turn, whatever it is. It's having that growth mindset, man, it's huge.
Yeah, absolutely. So you go to work in the off season, you put in the time, you wrestle a lot of off season matches. You come into your sophomore year. What's your sophomore year look like?
So I had another really good year. It was undefeated, all the way up to semi-state, won semi-state that year. And I had one of the tougher weight classes at state.
You jumped up a weight class, correct?
Yep, I went up to 182. So I had one of the tougher weight classes at state. I wrestled, there were 4 guys in my weight class who were committed to go D1. I'm trying to think. Noah Kressel, he's who ended up beating me quarterfinals. He went to North Dakota State University, NDSU. Nathan Walton, he went to Gardner or Cumberland, maybe Cumberland University. Another kid went to University of Indianapolis, or not, they're D2, I think. And then another kid ended up going to IU, who ended up winning it all. I think Evan Graber or Connor Graber or something like that. But yeah, so I had a really deep weight class. And man, I went into my quarterfinals match of state, and I kind of dominated everybody else all the way through. Quarterfinals match, go outside single, go bar cigar, and I drop my head real low, and I kind of try running bar cigar with my head down, and he hips in, puts me on my back, and gets, I think he got 3 near fall, 2 takedown, 3 near fall. So now, and then I get a reversal and make it 5-2. Then I cut him, make it 6-2. And, it's same thing as what semi-state was my freshman year. Now I'm kind of in a grinder, and I ended up kind of clawing back a little bit and got the match really close. And I think I was down by 2 points. And my coach was like, hey, we should go neutral, And I was like, no, I want to go bottom. I can get away, then take down, and now I'm up by 1. Well, later in the match, I got ruled out for like a minute. So they're like, no, neutral. I'm like, no, I'm going down. And stubbornness got the best of me. I go down. Guy throws in legs on me. And I ended up getting the road like the whole third period. I think I got away with like 15 seconds left. But at that point, I'm kind of diving in on shots. No real good setup. So end up losing by 1 in the quarterfinals. Again, heartbreaker, because that kid actually wrestled at the same club as me. Like 2 weeks after state, we're at practice together. And I'm dogging him out, grinding, breaking him. And I'm like, I'm better than this. I should have won this match. But, it is what it is. Ended up winning out. I think I ended up I didn't pin out. I pinned my next 2 kids, and then I won like 7-2 or something like that in the 5th and 6th place match. So, obviously not what I wanted, but, it was overall like a good year. I think I went like 40-1 that year, with like 38-1 or something like that. So that was a good year. Then I had a really productive offseason. Went out to Super 32 and got 3rd at Super 32. Lost to a kid named Jacob Cardenas, who's at Cornell now. He was kind of like what's a thorn in my side, is that the saying? Thorn in my side. I couldn't kind of overcome him. He beat me a couple times my sophomore year. Beat me once at journeyman and beat me again at Super 32. But he's a good wrestler. It was always a competitive match. But yeah. So then I had the productive offseason. That's when a lot of my recruiting started happening too. Is I went out, made some noise at those couple tournaments, and then people really started taking notice of me and stuff. So.
Yeah. Coming into your junior year, you've already, you've won at the national level a lot. You dominate through your junior year. We can pretty much just say you didn't pin, did you major everybody through?
Yeah. Yeah. I majored everybody. I think my closest match was my state finals match, and I won by 9, I think. Yeah. Beat him by 9. So, yeah. Yeah.
So, big junior season, and you win state that year. Do you wrestle in the off season? Is that the year you bust your elbow?
Yep. So and then riding, that high kind of my season, I go into the off season, and went out to Flow Nationals. I think it was my first off season tournament, and I won Flow Nationals. Actually beat my teammate in the finals, Nathan Haas. He's at UNO now at Nebraska, and I beat him in the finals that match. Super cool. Made the Pan American World Team. Was going to go down to, I think it was Morelia, Mexico, and wrestle the Pan Am Games. So then I'm hyped. Like, let's go. 2 weeks later, we have UWW Worlds. So now I'm out, at Worlds trying to make a cadet world team. And I was like, let's wrestle Greco and freestyle. Let's do this. Let's make every world team. Let's just wrestle. So I ended up losing in I think it was the semis. I ended up wrestling for 3rd and 4th in Greco. So I think I lost in the semis. Wrestled for 3rd and 4th in Greco, and in my match, I try to dig underhook and throw this guy, and my elbow pops. I'm like, man, I don't know what happened. It feels kind of funny, whatever. Tell the trainer about it afterwards. He's like, hey, I think you're fine. Maybe just like a strain or something. You should be good. I'm like, all right. So, I just took 3rd in Greco. I'm hyped about it. I'm like, all right, let's get some ice on this elbow. We got freestyle tomorrow. Let's scrap. Well, elbow never got better. It was just achy and sore, and it was driving me nuts. But, wrestled anyways. Ended up tech falling my first 2 kids. They weren't very good. Tech falled them in like 10 seconds apiece, or 20 seconds apiece, short matches. And then I meet this kid in the quarters, I want to say, and pretty good kid. Knows how to hand fight a little bit, has a really good underhook. He kept underhooking my right side, and I could not clamp my elbow down. I could not get my arm down. I was like, what is going on? Like, it was just so painful, and he kept tearing me up with just the same little throw by from the underhook. It ended up being like 11-9 or something. And I was like, man, what's going on? Like, and I told my coach, I was like, hey, there's something wrong with my arm. Like, I really can't get it down. And they're like, all right, well, you're done for the day. Let's go to the hotel. Let's rest, ibuprofen, ice bath, and, we'll see how it feels tomorrow. So go to the hotel, rest, ice bath, do everything the right way. Wake up the next morning, arm is hurting even more, throbbing. Like, I don't know what's going on. I go and I try to get warmed up, and it will not loosen up. Well, I was like, hey, I don't know if I can wrestle. And they're like, well, want to try one more match? I was like, sure, I'll try one more match, and we'll just see how it goes. And I'm wrestling this match, and my arms, adrenaline gets going, don't feel it as much, so I'm not really focused on it. And then all of a sudden, I post my arm just gives out. I'm like, oh my gosh, it dislocated, it bent the wrong way. So go over to the trainers, they tape it all up, like, let's get going. I was like, all right, let's go. I'm going to win this match. I was up like 6-3 or something like that. He snaps me, my hand post gives out again, I fall over. And now I'm winning 6-5. And I'm just grimacing because I can't post my arm, can't do anything with it, And in freestyle, you got to post and you got to wrestle parterre, and I just couldn't do it. Well, I end up, injury, DQing out of that match. Go over to the training area, and they're like, yeah, there's a bone out of place. Thing it's dislocated. We'll try to pop it back in place. And they're just cranking on my arm. And at this point, I'm just like trying to be tough. Like, tears are going down. I'm just like, My mom's sitting there crying. My dad's like, hand on his face, like, oh my gosh, this is the worst thing ever.
Yeah.
Well, I ended up going to the hospital. They couldn't pop it back into place. Go to the hospital. He's like, hey, turn your wrist for me. So I started pronating, supinating my hand. He's like, yeah, not dislocated. And I was like, really? He goes, yep. He goes, but they said there's a bone out of place. He goes, well, there might be. Goes, gets an extra machine, brings it in. He's like, sure enough, yep. I had broke the tip of my ulna where my tricep attached, and it like went up towards my tricep. So, instead of that tendon ripping, from the bone, it just pulled the bone away from the rest of the bone.
Gosh.
So that ended up, that was gutting. I was gutted because not only did that mean that I couldn't go wrestle at Pan Am Games, but now my chance of making a UW World Team was gone. It was over. So that was a really, really tough summer for me because I had been doing everything right. I was dieting right. I was wrestling a ton. I was doing everything off the mat the right way, living my life the way a champion would live their life. And then, man, it just like the rug pulled out from underneath my feet. You know,
you had to have surgery, correct?
Got surgery, and I ended up being out for like 6 months. It was brutal. It was a brutal recovery. They put 2 6-inch pins in my elbow to hold that bone in place, and I ended up having to wrestle with that my whole senior year. So,
senior year going into it. You got an injury, but it doesn't slow you down. You pin your way to a state championship. Pinned everybody.
Yeah. I mean, dominated. It was awesome year.
Yeah,
it was cool. And like the least arrogant way possible or cocky way possible. I had kind of separated myself from a lot of the other guys, just with the things I was doing and the way I was living and the way I was competing and stuff. It was just. People say it, there's levels to the sport, and I, was doing everything to make myself take those next steps to put myself on a different level than the guys around me. And then, there are a couple of other good guys, but I was kind of getting dodged a little bit. Guys moving up weight classes or going down weight classes and stuff to kind of avoid wrestling me. So, my weight class kind of got a little bit diluted, but it was still a cool experience
for sure.
Tournament.
Yeah, it was fun to watch. We were there for a lot of that and watching the state, and you could feel the whole arena pulling for you to get the pin in the state finals, and finally you got that pulled off and capped off an incredible year. But before your senior year, you find out that your dad's sick.
Yeah.
Give me a little of that story.
So right after I'd broken my arm, this was kind of leading up to that a little bit too. My dad, we'd always work out together and do everything together. We trained together a lot. He wouldn't really wrestle with me, but, we'd lift weights, all this stuff. Well, a couple months prior out to Flow Nationals, he kind of stopped lifting, and he said he didn't have motivation for it anymore. This is probably about March of my junior year. So this continued all the way up until like July. And he started complaining about like body hurting. Like it was mainly his legs were giving me issues. And me holding my dad to the same standard he was been to, I was like, Dad, come on, man, let's get tough. Let's go work out. Come on, you're like the toughest man I know. Let's do this.
Mm-hmm.
And he'd try, and it just couldn't do it. It was weird. Well, we moved that summer, and I remember like knowing something was wrong with him when we were moving, because like he just wasn't doing what he used to do. My dad was very strong and took pride in how big he was, 6'3", like 280 pounds. Like he was put together.
Yeah.
And he just couldn't like move furniture the way he used to, or pick up objects. It was strange, And we get all moved in and stuff. And at this time, I'm doing everything with one arm because I'm in a sling because I just had surgery, all this stuff. But I got to be home and spend this time with my family. And like I said, we were moving, so go all the way through this. My dad's health doesn't really change. He just still dealing with his leg stuff. So he's like, I'm going to start looking into it. And, he goes and starts looking into it. And this is probably about July, early August, going into my senior year. And, they tell me they think it's an autoimmune disease. And basically with autoimmune diseases, what they do is they have this long list. And they go through this list. And it's basically from, like, least terminal to most terminal. Like, what you'd want to have and hope for it to be versus what you definitely don't want it to happen. Slowly but surely, it's not this, not this, not this, not this. And go through this whole list, and it's like a 2-month process. And then, like the first week of September of my senior year, my dad got diagnosed with ALS. And, it was, I remember it super, super vividly because I actually took him to his appointment. And we went there, and before it got confirmed, we left it, and my dad's like, he was getting these treatments done to see if it was like these other 2 diseases other than MS or ALS. And they weren't doing anything for him. They weren't helping him at all. And he kind of looked at me and he goes, I think that this is going to be serious. And I was like, no, you're going to get better. Like, there's no way. And he's like, no, son, I think I have ALS. And I was like, why? Like, why would you speak that? Like, there's no way.
Yeah.
And we drive the rest of the way home, whatever. And then that next day I get home, the first one home. At this point, it's not wrestling season yet. It's football season. I'm not playing football. So I get home and my dad's like, hey, I need to talk to you. So I go and I talk, and I was the first person he told. He was like, yeah, they told me I have ALS. They confirmed it. And I was like, man, just got hit by a truck.
Yeah.
Blasted. My hero, the man I looked up to my entire life, like, he's terminally ill. He's going, this disease is what's going to be what takes his life. Like, knowing that, it was hard. I remember going to school the next day and just like, wearing my emotions, like not talking to anybody, head down, whatever. And I was like that for a while. And, it was a super difficult time. I remember that night after he had told me, I was like, okay, I know we're going to figure this out. We're going to get this as a family, and it's going to be okay. And I remember sitting there and watching him tell everybody else, all my siblings and his wife, and they all just start sobbing. And I'm like sitting there like holding together, like, hey, we're going to be okay. Like going, hugging everybody. Like, we got this. We're going to get to as a family, trying to, like I said, carry that responsibility, carry that burden, try to look after everybody. And, it was, I don't know, man, it's tough to put into words, like how difficult it was seeing, that the biggest, toughest, strongest man you know, and the one who you admired your entire life be, broken down into this version of a man that you don't even recognize. It's tough.
Yeah. It's such a tragic story, just because, you kind of went from this kid that had to kind of bear the responsibilities of things that you probably shouldn't have to bear, to finally get into this place where you were able to be celebrated and be able to be this kid and be this champion. And then it's like full circle. You're back to that place where you're bearing the responsibility, having to step in as this man. And then at the same time as you're dealing with the fact that this is your hero. I can't imagine what that feels like. Don't want to know what that feels like, but all I can say is it almost seems like you were prepared in a way because of your lifestyle. It seems like, unfortunately, like we talk about, the struggles and trials prepare us for that next step. And I watched you go through it, and it's not like it's not like you just went through it easily, but you did it the way you do everything. You approached it the best way you knew how, which was control what I control, do the best I possibly can, and be there for the people that I love. And that's it, and I think a lot of people can learn from that. It's like, even though you don't have it all together, you can have what you can control together, and how did that play into your senior year? You were dominant through. Did you have that in the back of your head? Was dad, or were you just out there doing what you knew you prepared to do?
It was always there, I always knew like, this could be the last year my dad watching me wrestle, because I knew that I was going to redshirt, my freshman year at Nebraska. And, you know, with COVID and stuff, it's like, it was so unexpected. Like, who knew what they were going to do from a competition standpoint? So like, this could be it, you know? So that was in the back of my mind a little bit, but, you know, more than anything, it's like, I've always felt this responsibility, to achieve everything I could possibly achieve and to compete at the highest level, because, you know, in a lot of ways, I had every reason to not be where I was at, you know, and not be at the level that I was at, you know, even when I was a senior in high school, it's like, you know, coming from a super difficult childhood, you know, not having my dad around from a young age, having to be around an abusive stepdad who, you know, made life very difficult, like dealing with all those things, like I was preloaded with every excuse to fail. You know, I could have,
Right.
oh, well, you know, of course he's failing his classes, you know, look what he's doing with at
Yeah.
home, you know,
Yeah.
of course he's making the wrong choices. Like he has to, you know, so because, you know, I didn't do those things and I chose a different path.
Why did you choose a different path? Like, I mean, why did you not take the easy way? I mean, we need to know that, because it's so common to see the path of the kid that you were, take the excuse to start failing, to you know, do those things. Do you know why?
Yeah, I saw what I didn't want for myself, you know, like, I mean, my mom is an incredibly strong woman, but, you know, she got pregnant with my brother when she was 16, gave birth to him at 17, pregnant with me at 17, gave birth to me when she was 18. So, I mean, she made her life really, really hard. And a lot of things that she went through in life were self-inflicted, and she had to grow through those things. And now I'm not saying, you know, her being with an abusive man was self-inflicted, but, you know, other struggles that she had, you know, the financial burden of you know, having to take care of two children when you're that young, and, you know, figuring out how to finish your education, and that's like that. Like, she brought those things on herself, and she struggled through it. You know, my dad getting in fights, making the wrong choices, like he brought a lot of his struggles in life onto himself. And by seeing them struggle and by seeing the mistakes that they made, I knew what I didn't want to do. And because I recognized that at an early age, and I saw, you know, that these choices and these mistakes lead to this difficult of a life, I want to try to do the opposite of that, because I want to try to have, you know, in as many ways an easy life as I can, and provide, you know, a great life for my family. I don't want them to have to struggle, you know? So recognizing early on that making these choices led to, you know, a very difficult life, and making these choices would lead to, you know, not a difficult life, but lead to more opportunities and lead to a better life. That's what I chose. So
that's interesting. I mean, I was not that kid. I mean, I consider myself a pretty aware child, you know, to a certain degree, but to discover the fact that your choices become your life, I didn't learn that until later in life. You know, like, it's obvious, it's common knowledge to think, oh yeah, of course the choices I make will end up being the life that I have to live. But I think when I'm young, you think that your choices don't matter so much. It's interesting that you were able to look at that and go, they made choices, they're living a life, and the consequences of those choices, I will do the same thing, but I'm going to choose this at an early age.
Well, for me, it was, I always asked the question why. Like that question was always in my head, because, you know, when I'd, you know, wake up in the middle of the night to arguing, to screaming, to glass breaking, whatever, it was always like, it's weird, you know, and this kind of hits on my faith a little bit, but I'd always be like, why God? You know, why me? Why are you allowing these struggles to happen to me in my life? Like, I don't understand. And questioning early on, you know, led me to question not just, you know, why in my life, but why everything, you know? So it made me, I was a very curious kid, you know? So like, I remember like questioning my dad too, like, you know, cause like I said, I didn't move in with him until I was like 12 or 13, but I would still see him, you know, on and off. So I remember one day he had picked us up, and, you know, I was very emotional. I was crying. He's like, what's wrong? And I was like, I just don't know why. I was like, why did this God make me go through this? Why is he making me suffer? Like, why do I have to worry about taking care of my sisters? Why do I, you know, have to worry about when you pick me up that, you know, they're going to be up all night crying because, you know, they're going to hear arguing. Like, why do I have to deal with that? And he kind of looked at me and said, you know, you're not supposed to know the answer to that right now. Like, it's okay that you don't know. He goes, you know, you just have to try to stay strong. And that was so hard, because as a kid, you want to know everything. You know, little kids are like, well, why is that? Why is blue blue? Like, why is that?
Right.
You know, and they want everything explained, you know. So me as a 10-year-old, I want it all explained. I want every answer. I want to, you know that, well, Silas, you know, you're suffering right now. This is going to help you later in life. This is going to make you stronger, because you're going to need that strength, you know. And obviously looking back on it now, it's like, you know, when I asked that question, why, I was like, well, you know, in a lot of ways, God was, helping me learn to depend on him, to lean on him, to help get through difficult situations, which is what I needed when my dad passed. But, so early on, I would question everything. I was always, why? Why me? Why this? Why that? And because of that questioning, I started to kind of answer those questions myself. So it's like, why is my mom, with this guy? Why she struggles so much? And then it's like, well, she chose to marry him, which was probably not the right choice. So now she's kind of stuck with him, because when you marry somebody, now you're stuck with him. And, now they have this kid together. And now my mom was making her life really hard because she made those choices. So maybe I shouldn't make those choices. It was that kind of thing, to where I would question why and then try to figure it out on my own. And by doing that, I learned what, who I wanted to be.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a super great mindset to have. It's just uncommon with children, but I'm thankful that you had it, because it has served you well. Were you allowed to have emotions as a kid? Were you given that freedom?
Yeah, I was a very emotional kid.
Yeah.
I still am, in a lot of ways, very emotional. Now, the way I express my emotions is very different now. But yeah, when I was a kid, I was very emotional. Yeah, like I said, I'd go to my dad, and a lot of times he's the one who I share my emotions with, because I always, like, no one told me that, you couldn't cry, whatever, but I wanted to be strong for everybody else, because I wanted to be like a source of comfort, So if I'm sitting there, sobbing, like freaking out, panicking, then they're going to panic even more. So because I wanted to be there for them, I felt a need to try to be calm and be a voice of reason and be a voice of comfort. So yeah, I did the best I could to feel my emotions and try to, sift through them and understand them without wearing them, without them being visible,
Yeah. It seems like you were obviously this, person that did lead and cared and took care of a lot of your siblings and the people around you. And you always had other people in mind. Did that limit you in your ability to actually truly connect to people, because you always felt like you had to be the leader, the tough person, or how were your connections? Because I see a lot of people that are in those roles almost always take that position of teacher, leader, whatever, and never really get that time to truly connect. Did you have a lot of high school connection? Did you have connections with other people? Did you have any depth there, or were you kind of in that role?
No, I had a lot of, I made some really good friendships, and I had a lot of close friends in high school, but, in a lot of ways, I've always just felt very different than the people around me. I've always had very different interests, my high school buddies are 16, 17, wanting to party and wanting to do all this stuff. Like, that was just not an interest that I had, I just, again, it was like, I knew where those decisions led and the lifestyle those decisions would get you. And there was no desire for me to try. Like, even though it's like, it's not going to be a lifestyle, it's just for fun. It's like, I just had no desire for those things, because I knew, I don't know.
You saw the bad side.
Yeah, I just had a deeper understanding of what those things led to. My dad struggled with alcoholism, so it's like, I don't want alcohol.
Right.
My mom's mother, I guess my grandma, the guy she was with when she had my mom, like, my mom told me stories of, him, like, being involved in drugs and whatnot and just all these things. So it's like, no, I don't want to be around drugs and stuff. Like, it's just knowing, again, it was knowing what I didn't want, and the lifestyle that I wanted for myself, and the life I wanted to build for my family one day. Like, knowing those things, it made it really easy for me to say no.
That makes sense.
And people, in my school respected me enough to where a lot of times they wouldn't even ask me. Like they knew, hey, we'll have this party. Don't ask Silas, because, like, he's not gonna come. Like, he's at practice, or he's doing something else. Like, no, like, and it was just
known,
and I knew that, and I was okay with that. I was okay with being the guy who wouldn't get invited to a party on Saturday. That didn't bug me at all.
Right.
I didn't ever worry about being left out, because I knew that it really wasn't getting left out. It was just they knew that I was different. So.
Well, after your sophomore year, kind of going into that direction, you kind of made a decision that wrestling was it, right? And stopped other sports. You like, because from what I remember at that time, there was a talk that you could have been recruited for football, but especially baseball and wrestling. What made you kind of hone in and go wrestling?
Yeah, so my 7th grade year going into my 8th grade year, I was practicing with our high school baseball team. And yeah, I mean, I was pretty good at baseball. My dad, that's what the sport he was recruited heavily for, was baseball. So I had I guess a lot of opportunity there. You know, I had the traits for it, the genes for it. You know, my dad passed those on to me, where he was really good. I was pretty good also. So yeah.
You were throwing pretty hard as an 8th grader, weren't you?
Yeah, no, it was actually the 7th grade. 7th grade going into my 8th grade year, I got clocked at like 74, 75.
Pretty fast for a 7th grader.
Yeah, and I was a young 7th grader too. I was only 12. I didn't turn 13 until like May. So this was like fall ball my 7th grade year. So I was like 12.
Wow.
Yeah, in 7th grade. So, and they say like 5 miles per hour per year is how you want to develop. So by the time you're 18, you're throwing 90. So I was, only supposed to be throwing 60 at that time. So I was 50 miles per hour ahead of where I was supposed to be. So yeah, there was a lot of excitement there. But I went out to nationals for wrestling, USA Nationals in Cedar Falls, Iowa, and I got second. I ended up losing first round to the guy who ended up becoming the champion.
Wow.
That was the draw. And I wrestled back and won like 9 matches to get second place. And my dad was like, son, you just proved that you were the second best wrestler in the country at your weight class. And you did it in a pretty awesome way. I don't know if you're the second best baseball player. He goes, I don't know. You might be, but I'm not sure. He goes, I think that if you really want to be great, I think you need to decide what you want to do. And I remember the whole car ride back, I'm just sitting there thinking, and it's like an 8-hour car ride back. I'm sitting in the back of the car and I'm just thinking, well. And I was like, Dad, I think I know what I want to do. And he's like, all right. I was like, I think I want to wrestle. And he got real quiet. I was real upset. And I could tell. Because baseball was his passion. He didn't know that much about wrestling, especially at that point in my life. But he goes, okay, let's be great at wrestling and let's do this. And, in my mind, I made that choice because my dad's path was baseball. Yeah. Baseball was my dad's. And I was like, I want something to be mine. So picked wrestling. Then I played football, like you said, my freshman, sophomore year. But I'd always miss like the first 3 or 4 weeks of wrestling season because my legs were always banged up, my arms were banged up, or I was hurt because of football season. So I was like, you know what, this isn't for me. I'm pretty good at football. I had a couple coaches tell me like, hey, you could be great at this, but I just loved wrestling more, and wrestling was more fun to me because as much as I love team sports and wrestling has a team aspect, is like, I knew that the work I put in was going to be equivalent to what I got out of it, right. Whereas in regards to football, it's like, you can grind, put in a ton of work, but if your teammates are doing the same thing and your teammates have a bad game, you can't control that. You lose the game because your teammates play poorly. It's like, I want my output to be indicative of my result.
Yeah.
So wrestling was it.
Yeah.
It was what stuck for me.
That's good. It's real good. Now, moving into your college recruitment, you decide to go to Nebraska, but I know there was other schools on the table. Tell me the recruitment process and tell me why Nebraska.
Yeah, so my recruiting process was super unique. I remember, the first day that college coaches could reach out to you, I got like 30 phone calls, and I was just like blown away. I was like, oh my gosh, this many schools, like they know me. It was crazy. And at that point, I was like, this could be super awesome. And one of the schools reached out to me was Nebraska. And what's super cool about Nebraska is that when I was in 8th grade, my dad was already, he's like, all right, we're buying into wrestling, so I'm going to reach out to some college coaches. And my dad, man, he was super proactive in this. And he reached out to so many coaches and was like, hey, just want to give you a heads up on a kid you should keep an eye on. It's my son, this, whatever. Well, only 2 coaches reached back out to him and told him, thank you, we'll keep an eye on him. One was Coach Lanham from Duke. The other was Coach Manning from Nebraska.
Wow.
Yeah, so super, super awesome. Crazy how it comes full circle, but yeah, they reached out to me again my sophomore year. Or not sophomore year, I think it was my junior year.
Yeah.
Going like the first 2 weeks of my junior year. And yeah, man, it was awesome, and we start talking super heavily. There's a couple other, colleges that are interested in me, Purdue, Indiana, super interested. NC State was talking to me at this time too. And a few other schools, some Ivy League schools are talking to me and stuff, but really the big one that I was super interested in was Nebraska, was NC State. And then I was talking to Arizona State as well.
Okay.
And, the Arizona State connection was through, another Indiana coach who was pretty tight with them, but that was something that I was like kind of interested in exploring, but I was going to like kind of see how it went, whatever. Well, man, I came out to Nebraska and I just fell in love. You know, it's one of those things that, like, you know, people say, like, well, when you know, you just get this feeling. Came here, visited, fell in love with not only like the campus and the environment and all stuff, but I fell in love with the coaches and the people. You know, their faith, the men that they were, you know, the opportunities. Like, it just felt right. And I feel like there was something here for me that was more than wrestling. So I was like, you know what? I don't need to visit any more schools. Like, Manning, you got me. I'm coming here.
Wow.
And I remember sitting in the car and we get the phone call and they're like, hey, you know, we want to offer you whatever. And I was like, let me call my dad. Call my dad. I was like, hey, Dad, I'm going to Nebraska. He goes, are you sure? I was like, yeah. He goes, then freaking tell him, dude, let's do this. And he was gleaming. Like, this is my dad's dream for my life fulfilled in a sense.
When was this? Was this like
my junior year?
So junior year. So this
January.
January.
Early
so before he knew he was sick. Everything, you know, because so plans are Nebraska from junior year.
Yeah, and it was. I mean, I remember getting home after that phone call because it's funny. I remember the phone call. It was with Coach Maple, who's at Missouri at the time, but it was with him. And you know, he had called me and told me everything, and I was like, "You got me, man. I'm committing." And he's like, let's go. This is so sick. Like, you know, it was all hype and stuff. And I remember I was in an Arby's parking lot. I pulled into Arby's to take the phone call to call my dad. And I was like, hey, Dad. And he's like, well, I was like, it's official. I'm going to be a Cornhusker. And he's like, oh my gosh, get home right now. We got to celebrate. Get home. So I drive home and he just, man, gives this big old bear hug. I'm so proud of you. And it's just, I mean, it was awesome. It was awesome. Like, everything that we had worked for, like, in that moment just felt, it was fulfilled, you know, in a sense, you know, so it was really cool.
That's cool. So from junior year on, you know, it's Nebraska. You finish your senior year, your dad's sick. You go to Nebraska. He's not doing well. How hard was that?
It was a very, very difficult transition. Me and him, and our relationship got really difficult because I saw, you know, when you're going through something really, really difficult, like he was, you know, you really start to see a lot of the humanity in a person. You see, like, their flaws, you see the brokenness, you see the hurt, you see the pain. And, you know, it got really difficult because, you know, my dad would act in anger and would get mad and frustrated, but really that was hurt.
Right.
You know, he was hurting because there was so much that he was missing. There was so much he couldn't do.
Right.
And that was really hard for him. In the end, it put a lot of strain on our relationship. You know, I kind of took on a role as caregiver and would help as much as I could. But, you know, it got to a point to where I stopped seeing him as my dad and started seeing him as a burden. I started seeing him as, I have to take care of him. I have to do these things. I have to this. I have to that. I have to this. And, you know, it put so much strain and I just wanted my dad.
Yeah.
And yeah, man, it was so hard because to tell him, like, Dad, I don't want to take care of you, but it's not because I don't love you. It's because I want you to be my dad. Right. And when I'm sitting here taking care of you and you're making me do these things for you and you know, treating me poorly while I'm serving you, like that makes me, like, start to resent you. And it makes me angry at you. And it makes me not want to do anything for you. And I don't want these last 2 months of us being together to be this way. Yeah. You know, I want you to just be my dad. And, you know, obviously at this time, you know, I'm with your daughter and, you know, me and her are dating a little bit and she's really an outlet for me. And, you know, whenever I get to be with her, it's like weight off the shoulders, no worry, no stress. And it's like an escape. And yeah, so before I came out to Nebraska, you know, those last 2 months, you know, I had told my dad, like, I want to take a step back as being caregiver and I just want you to be my dad.
Yeah.
And for about a month, he really resented me for it. He was very upset with me because that meant that I wasn't sitting in the house 8 hours a day at his beck and call. But it also meant that the time that we did have together was more intimate and more special.
Sure.
And more conversational. And it just meant more. So yeah, I think, I don't know if I would handle it any differently now. I mean, going back, obviously, you know, there's always like, more time, you know, here, more time there, whatever. But it's like, I think things happened the way they were supposed to happen, in a lot of ways, you know. I mean, I can't change it now, you know. No. So yeah. So then when I went out to Nebraska, it was very tough leaving. Not because not because in a sense, like I wasn't ready to leave, but it was hard leaving because I was worried about everybody else.
I remember you also saying that you didn't know if you would ever see him again.
Yeah. Just me and my dad had a super, super unique relationships. And in a lot of ways, he would come to me about things that, probably shouldn't go to your son about, know, but we weren't just following something. We were best friends. In so many aspects, we would have the most difficult conversations about life with each other. And in a lot of ways, I was like his motivating, like I was his motivation. I was what, like, his pride and joy per se.
Yeah, but he kind of lived. Your dad, I mean, not going fully into his story, but he had a lot of offers as well, and to his credit, he admitted in some sense he kind of lived vicariously through you. Yeah,
and that's the truth. That's like everything that my dad failed to accomplish because of his poor decisions, I accomplished because of my good decisions.
Sure.
And that was very validating to him as a father and as a man, because
absolutely.
He was able to steer me in the right direction in a lot of sense, and I like to think that I did a pretty good job of being self-sufficient, but he did provide me a ton of direction, and he's very responsible for the man that I am today, and being who I am. So yeah, that was very fulfilling for him, for me to come out here or come out to Nebraska and do what I've been doing so far. So yeah.
He got to see you suit up as a Husker, right?
He did, yeah. COVID year basically being like a blank year, you do whatever you want to do kind of thing. I did get to wrestle a couple times. Didn't wrestle great because obviously a lot going on, but
it was cool because I remember talking to him and he was super excited about just seeing you. Again, it was a fruition of the dream and seeing you in the red and white and living your dream and his dream. I was so happy that your dad was able to live and see that. Even though he wasn't able to be there in person, he was able to partake with that with you. And that season, it's being weird, and like you said, in general, just a COVID year, but it was complicated also with your dad being sick. Kind of tell me how that year goes and ends for you. Well, first off, when you get to college, are you getting your butt kicked? Are you winning? What are you competitive? What's going on?
Dude, I was getting smashed. I mean, it was about as bad as it could be. I mean, like, I was getting broken day in, day out.
Wow.
In practice. And I mean, to the point of, like, middle of practice, it was like, hold it in, Silas. You're not gonna cry right now. It's not gonna happen.
You're like,
and literally, I was so, like, emotional, just about everything. It was like find it, and I couldn't find it. And that was honestly that is the tale of my freshman year at college, my freshman year, is a tale of not being able to get a hold on my life and not being able to handle it.
So you felt out of control, felt out of sync the whole year.
Yeah, it was bad. I took care of things in the classroom. I got my grades done and everything like that. But I mean, even still, it was just I was out of whack, man. I was out of alignment. There was so much going on around me. I was like Paul. I was focused on the waves, man. I wasn't focused on what was right in front of me. I was focused on the waves. I was sinking, and I did not develop at all. I ended up finishing that year probably the exact same semester that I was when I got to Nebraska. Which is a blown opportunity. But
did you have times where you thought, like, I'm not good enough? I'm like,
oh yeah, all the time. But then, I quickly kind of reset myself, and I'm not the kind of person to give up. But I'd always reset myself and be like, you're here for a reason. Like, they picked you for a reason. Like, but I'm sure the coaches were like, man, what are you doing, dude? Like, are you kidding me? Giving this kid some scholarship? I'm like, what are you doing? So,
but you had a pretty good guy in your weight class.
I had Eric Schultz, for sure. And Eric Schultz is tough. Yeah, All-American last year, just won Bill Farrell.
Yeah,
just went out there and beat Morgan McIntosh, NCAA champion.
Yeah.
So yeah, he wrestled really well. But I mean, yeah, and he's awesome. He's a super hard worker, dude. I mean, don't blame him for breaking me every single day. I mean, it made me who I am now. So
did you start seeing any, like, improvement your freshman year? Was there enough change that you saw some, okay, maybe I got a foothold here, or did you leave that season going, not sure?
No, I as my own wrestler, I did not develop it all. I learned how to wrestle my teammates better. Like, Schultz, he wants underhook. I learned how to wrestle overhook really good. I was really good in overhook, and I could hit a couple throws from there, and I was really stingy there. But like, as my own personal development, I didn't develop that year. Like,
Wow.
I genuinely, I don't think I became much better of a wrestler. I gave him a better feel for sure.
Yeah.
But
and it's hard to tell too, but probably if you wrestled yourself from after your freshman year in college and you wrestled yourself as a senior, I think you beat your senior version of yourself.
yeah, no, for sure.
It's different when you're in a college room.
I think I got tougher.
Yeah,
I think
for sure.
I think I for sure got mentally tougher, and I think that I was for sure a tougher man, because of the lumps that I took.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, just from a development standpoint, I don't know.
In that year, your dad succumbs to the disease. You leave and you come home. When you go back, are you able to get back into the motion of wrestling? Is that an outlet for you? Is that therapy for you?
Yeah, I didn't go in the room for a week. I couldn't be in the wrestling room. It was really hard because it felt like it was like mine and my dad's, and that was really difficult for me. And then I went back to practice and got back on the mat, and it was refreshing. It felt good to move around a little bit and just to be back in the room. Teammates all excited, like, Silas, man, you're back. Like, we missed you. This stuff's like, and obviously they had all reached out when I passed them, like, sorry for your loss, those things. So that it felt good to be back on the mat and be back wrestling and stuff. But, yeah, it was hard. It was really hard getting back into the swing of things, especially like my dad would call me, multiple times a week, check in on me. And even when he couldn't talk anymore, he'd still call me and like FaceTime me, and I'd talk to him, and he'd like nod and stuff and shake his head. And, but yeah, it was my dad. I felt like I lost my dad a long time before he passed away because he just wasn't the man that was my dad,
Yeah.
So I felt like I lost him long before, but the fact that his physical presence was actually absent now from my life completely, that part was difficult.
It's tough.
Yeah.
For sure. After your freshman year of college, you returned back, and that summer you become a husband. So you and my daughter get married. Coming out of your freshman year, that's a tough year, like you said. Being away from you and Jay being apart from each other. You get married. What is it like being a college athlete, young, trying to make your way in that, trying to keep your grades, but now you choose to be a husband? What's that process? Were you glad you did it? I mean, I'm your father-in-law here, but what is that like?
No, it's full transparency always.
Yeah.
It was way more than what I thought it was going to be.
Sure.
In a lot of ways, and I saw my dad as a husband, and before that I didn't see any good examples of what a husband was, looked like. So I saw my dad was the husband, and there was things that I loved about it, and things that I was like, you know what, I think I'm gonna do this differently, which is what it is. But getting married, the responsibility of leading a home, of leading a woman in her faith, and being responsible, for those things, it's more than what I expected.
Sure.
I didn't. Like, when you get married, like, some people just look at it like, oh, nothing's going to change. We're still just like we were boyfriend and girlfriend, whatever. It's completely different.
Yeah.
It really is. And I took that seriously, and Jay took that seriously. So having to accept that responsibility and grow into that and grow into a man, because in a lot of ways I was still a boy, and truly learn to lead, not just myself, but her as well. That took some time, and it took some growth on both their ends, and it took some hard conversations and some headbutting and just a lot of effort on both ends.
Yeah.
But I think that because of that, I'm a better man, a better wrestler, a better son of God. It made me closer to what I feel like I'm being called to be.
That's good.
So I feel like it was for sure the right decision. Schooling wise, I was able to take care of my grades and stuff. Again. Wrestling wise, I was still developing, and I started getting better. And I think being married or being in a relationship with a good woman makes you more focused. Because now for me, it's like, this isn't for myself anymore. It's for her too. This is, to provide for our family one day, or to give us stability, or, you know, whatever comes with wrestling. Like this isn't my journey anymore. It's our journey.
Yeah.
And, you know, I take that seriously.
For
So
sure.
because of that, it makes me want to be better, you know?
Yeah, that makes sense. It makes a lot of sense. And you come into your sophomore year, you start seeing that progression and that change. And matter of fact, it's interesting because it's kind of afar, but also at a time there was you guys were in the same town, but Jordan kind of even mentored you in the sense of, you need to get Jade out here. You know, he was kind of a proponent in being married, you know. I think he saw that as well, that you can focus more. You can, you know, he's spoken to your life, and he was also part of the recruiting process. I don't want to skip over that, but, you know, Jordan's been a part of that conversation as well. Is that correct?
Yeah. He was, man, he's a great guy. You know, he really is just an awesome person. Him and his family, they're all great people. Yeah. And, you know, I FaceTime with him, like, I think it was just one time when I was being recruited, which is awesome. And obviously, you know, there might be some underlying, like, oh man, I'm going to be some college Jordan Bros. But I mean, still, it doesn't go against the fact that I said earlier when I went to Nebraska, I just fell in love. I didn't even meet Jordan when I went to Nebraska on my visit. He wasn't there. So I just fell in love with it, you know, aside from the fact that, you know, Jordan was going to be there. But yeah, he's an awesome guy. Man, so cool. So cool to be around it. So cool to see his process, see how he, you know, handles himself.
For sure.
Awesome to see, you know, be a part of, like, meet his family and stuff, be around them. Jade and the kids, they have a great relationship. You know, those kids are awesome. Being around them. So yeah, it's all super cool.
For sure. And I feel like I've been in the Nebraska room, been around the coaches, been around people, you know, Jordan and all them. They try to create the atmosphere of family. You know, like, it really is that. Talking about your sophomore year, you got the super senior, you know, in your weight class, and obviously that's great to have him there. Are you now starting to get more competitive in your weight at that point? What changed, if you are getting more competitive, what changed to make you there?
Yeah. Mentality for sure. Like something clicked, and I mean, I don't know when it happened. I don't know what it was, but at some point my sophomore year, I was like, dude, you deserve to be here. Like, you can compete with these guys. Like, you're going to be the guy next year. Like, get ready for that, man. Like figure it out. And obviously, you know, over that summer we brought in Tervel Dlagnev, who is, I mean, a freaking wizard when it comes to wrestling. He's awesome. He's helped me develop so much. A huge reason why, you know, I've had success early on this year.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's freaking awesome. But yeah, so having him around really helped a lot. But I mean, just my mentality shifted. It became less about, you know, let's wrestle, you know, against Eric harder. Let's make Schultz work more. And it became more about, like, let's try to be great. You know, let's really start to develop. Let's figure out who you're going to be as a wrestler.
Yeah.
And once that mentality shift happened, I really took off.
Yeah. By the end of the year, you got a couple. You won the Dextronics last year, and you know, wrestled well in the matches you were able to be in, but you still didn't get a ton of matches. But by the end of the year, you felt like you were ready to take that place. Yeah,
for sure. I felt very confident. I was ready to go. And then obviously, you know, after my sophomore year, that offseason, I put in a ton of work. Yeah. I was out at the OTC twice for a couple camps and was just training all summer long with Tervel and putting in some good work. So yeah, I think you know, all of that really got me ready for this year.
Yeah. Now we're into this year. You've had a few matches. What is your official record right now? Yeah.
Sorry, I am 9-1 right now.
9-1. Great start to a season. What's, if anything, surprising about being the varsity guy? Are you surprised by your competition? Does it feel different, or is it just kind of what you thought it would be?
I mean, it's very expected. You know, it very, in a lot of ways, it's very much what I thought it was going to be. Not really too many surprises. I think the biggest thing that I'm having to learn is, like, it's constant growth the entire season. Like, you know, you never really get to points where you feel like, yeah, I'm good enough.
Right.
You know, and that's big. And then, you know, also a big mindset change is, you know, especially for young guys, is taking winning off that pedestal and putting development up there, being the best wrestler I can be up there, you know. And when you focus in on that, then, you know, it makes everything easier, because it's like, if I'm too caught up on winning a match, then, You know, I might be winning 4-2 and I'm on bottom and I can get an escape, make it 5-2 and wrestle better. But instead of grinding for an escape and, you know, maybe having to roll across my back or whatever, I just lay on my stomach and don't do anything because I'm winning 4-2 like that. That's not development. That's not getting better, you know. And, you know, being young, you know, I still have, you know, this year and 3 other years left. Like I'm a freshman in eligibility. So it's like I have to focus on developing and trying to become the best that I can be right now. And then, you know, it's going to pay off in the coming years. So yeah, that's been huge. You know, I think losing that match I lost earlier this year, you know, obviously to a good guy, but I think losing that match really helped me kind of embrace that mindset. Cause now it's not like, oh, undefeated freshman year, that's gone. Forget about it. Not going to happen. Just be great now, you know, get better now. So
for sure.
So yeah, that's been big. And that's been the mindset thus far is like, where are we going to grow?
Yeah.
How are we going to grow? What are we going to do to grow more? You know, so.
I think it's big, you know, a lot of times in seasons and stuff like that, I think we try to win whatever the pinnacle tournament is, the first matches in our head. You know, it's all in our head. It's all that in plan, but it keeps you in a lot of ways from being able to have the freedom to grow and get better. Yes, the goal is still to be obviously, you know, All-American, you know, NCAA champion, Big Ten champ. All these things are still the reality. But if you're not developing and you're just trying to win, I think it pushes those goals out of reach a lot of times, because you can win a match 3-2 that maybe you could have opened up and really put on to somebody if you would have just wrestled and not worried about being, you know, ranked or being the, you know, NCAA champion, or, you know. So I think that you're saying the right things. I think it's a matter of now it's just develop. If you develop properly, typically those other things come into play. So that's great advice. And I was going to ask you if you have any advice for kids, coaches, people that are wanting to be successful in life, if you could give them some advice on how to get success in their own life, what would that be from your perspective?
Oh man, I think growth mindset's super important. I think, you know, just embracing the mindset of what can I do to be better? You know, for me, it's always, you know, wrestling, life, it is in general, it's always how can I get closer to what God's called me to become, you know? And I feel like the reason I'm here, you know, right now, and the reason I'm, you know, able to do what I do is because God has given me, you know, these abilities, and God's allowed me to be here. And because of that, I need to just be great at it and, you know, figure out how I can constantly be growing at it, because, you know, that's ultimately what God wants for us. And it's the way to live the most fulfilling life possible. You know, it's a constant pursuit. So yeah, I think that growth mindset's huge. I also think that, man, just being grateful. You know, when I was doing the stuff with my dad, what really helped me get through it is, you know, we didn't really hit on this, but my dad, you know, we mentioned he made some ulterior decisions, living a pretty bad lifestyle. He ended up getting shot when I was like 3 years old. He got shot 5 times, and yeah, you know, fought for his life for 3 days and was unconscious. And, you know, that reality to me, like knowing that I could have lost my dad when I was young and never had any time with him. Like, I mean, I just remember being in my dorm, you know, after he'd passed, just crying, just angry, like, why God, like, why this? And all of a sudden it was just like, it hit me. It was like, man, I could have had no time with him. I could have 0 memories. Wow. I could have no experiences. He could have impacted my life in no ways, but I got the time with him that I did. And I got to make those memories and experience what I did experience. I'm just so grateful that I got that. Like that part of the part of my life that he did touch is going to be with me the rest of my life. Like that means more to me than anything that I could have lost out on. And embracing that and allowing that to be my truth, like that, man, just, it makes everything so much easier.
That's good.
So that is, I mean, both those things are huge for me, is that growth mindset, constantly like thinking like, how can I get better? How can I improve? How can I, you know, get closer to the man God called me to be? And then ultimately just being grateful for every opportunity that I get, you know? That's
good. Yeah. If you're listening to this, those 2 things I think can change your life. I think that those 2 things, your growth mindset and your gratitude, I believe if you truly sow into those areas of your life, you can do anything. I agree.
No, for sure. And you know, the biggest, you know, reality people have to kind of, you know, learn to embrace is that growing is not easy, you know. Growing's hard, growing's uncomfortable, you know, and, you know, you talk about all the time is like, whoever, like, becoming who you want to be is right on the other side of being uncomfortable. You know, it's right on the other side of difficulty and struggle and again, uncomfortability. Like, learning to navigate struggle and difficulty and, you know, circumstances that you're not used to, like learning to get through those and growing through those, like that just, I mean, that's it. That's how you grow. That's how you become a better person. So
It's real good.
I think a lot of things in my life have forced me to be uncomfortable and have forced me to have to do that. But I think that choosing it on your own is a lot easier, and it also gives you the same opportunity to grow. Yeah.
Yeah. Kind of transition to that. You've talked about your faith quite a bit, you know, hitting here and there. What does faith mean to you? Not in the sense of the definition, but like, what does your faith mean to you, and how has it helped you in adversity and just in life?
Man, it's the foundation for my life. It's my motivation. It's the reason why I do what I do. You know, it's the reason why I put in the work where I put in work, and you know, the reason I'm at where I'm at. Like, it's I mean, for lack of a better word, it's everything. You know, I mean, I think in a lot of ways I wouldn't be where I'm at if it wasn't for God. It wasn't for, you know, Him allowing me to get through it. Yeah, it's my purpose. You know, and wrestling for me is like, it's incredible and I love it, and it's, you know, a passion of mine, but ultimately it's a platform, because at the end of the day, my life is about glorifying God and about making sure everybody knows that the reason I'm here and the reason I'm doing what I'm doing and the reason I've accomplished what I've accomplished, and hopefully I accomplish more, is because of God and because of my faith, you know. And that's always been the goal. The goal was never to win X amount of Olympic medals or win X amount of world championships. The goal was always to build a platform that I could share what God's done in my life, to hopefully impact somebody else to go to faith and to, you know, believe themselves, and to learn who God truly is, and to build that relationship. Because, you know, faith isn't, you know, opening the Bible and memorizing verses. Faith is having an intimate and a real relationship with God. Faith is knowing that no matter what we go through, He is always allowing, you know, these circumstances because He wants what's best for us. You know, God is never going to allow you to go through something you can't handle. He's never going to put you in a situation where you have no choice but to fail and to fall short. Everything, you know, like we said earlier, is all about growing and becoming closer to what He's wanted you to be and what He's calling you to be. So yeah, man, it's just, it's everything. Yeah.
That's good. I like that for sure. I got a couple closing questions here. This podcast is called Fighting for Success, but success is one of those terms that we can kind of throw around, and to many people to everybody it means something different. What does success mean to you?
Yeah, I feel like I'm repeating myself, but for me, success is getting as close as an individual can to what God's called them to be. And I feel like, you know, the beautiful thing about it is I'm never going to fully get there, because, you know, I'm human. I'm going to fall short. I'm going to fail. I'm going to make mistakes. But that constant pursuit of being the man that I feel like God's called me to be, like that is success, you know. And one day, you know, if I can look back and think, man, like the choices that I've made, the life that I lived, you know, was all to glorify God and to become the greatest man that I could be, you know, like that's success.
It's good. It's good. That is the chair that many greats have already sat in. We call it the challenge moment, challenge chair. If you could think of somebody that you think would be great in that seat, that could help spread the word of some type of knowledge to help people grow, to find success. People can find success by the way they've gone. Do you have anybody off the top of your head? It could be an old coach. It could be somebody you know that's in business and have learned through the combat sport ways to become successful. It could be a teammate. It could be anything. It could be a coach from today in your life. Is there somebody you think of that I haven't had on, because I've had a lot of the people that's in your life on already, that you would like to see sit in that chair that could provide value?
Man, two names that immediately pop in my head are, I guess, three now. I'm thinking about three. Manning.
Yeah.
I think Coach Manning, I think he'd be awesome. You know, very faith-led man, great guy. I think Kendrick Maple.
Yeah.
From Missouri. Man, he's an awesome guy. He did a ton of my recruiting. He is like one of the first people who texted me after my dad passed away. and wasn't even my coach at that point. He just reached out to me just because, he's an awesome man, very faith oriented as well. And then John Slivka, my middle school coach, who really made me fall in love with wrestling. I reconnected with him at the Navy Classic, and we talked for I don't know how long. He's just been a great guy,
That's
been
good.
there for me my whole life. He's just awesome guy. So I think he'd be super cool too.
That's neat. Yeah, for sure. We also want to help people accomplish the things they want to accomplish in life. And one of those things, I think, one way we can do that is, I think when you say something out loud, and in fact that it's recorded and going to be out there to the world, it kind of puts this accountability on it for us. Mm-hmm. What do you want to accomplish?
Personal goals. I want to be a national champion. I want to be a world champion. I want to be an Olympic champion. I want to take wrestling as far as I can take wrestling until my body tells me no more, until it's time to hang up the shoes, until, it's kind of, I've heard JB say it, but it's kind of the law of diminishing returns, until wrestling is taking more than it's giving to me, then at that point, like when that starts happening, then I'll know that it's time to be done. But for now, I'm young. I got a ton of time left on the mat. I just want to see how great I can be.
It's good.
See how far I can stretch these gifts that God's given me,
That's good.
So
good. Well, we're going to hold you to it. I'm going to close it like this, like we do pretty much every podcast. Is I just like to speak over the person that's in the chair, because you guys do provide so much value to all of us fans, and you work so hard. And you're like specifically you're someone that's always giving, and so I like to try to speak over and give back a little bit from the outside looking in. So Silas, obviously I got the opportunity to know you a little deeper than some. You're my son-in-law, and from that angle, the most important things in life is character, and your character is that of a godly man, and you lead and live a life that where your values are obvious. It's not that you say things and live differently. You are a person that your character, your values, and your lifestyle align. And I believe that to be the complete proponent to your success. You are who you say you are. But deeper than that, man, you are a man that's very gifted. The idea and the biblical, sometimes I get these biblical characters come up, but the biblical character that comes up with you is just David. It's this guy that's been, life has counted them out. Life said that they were, the struggles, they struggled too much. They were the person that was overlooking. There was all these opportunities for him to be nobody, but he was chosen. He was someone that was set apart. Whenever it looked like life counted him out, it was God sifting him and placing him to the side and preparing him for something even greater than he could possibly imagine. And so I see that you've gone against some giants. You've gone against some hardships. You've gone against some things in your life, but it's always been in preparation. It's not for defeat, it's for victory. And you're the type of guy that takes those tasks seriously. You don't just go out and tend the sheep because that's what you're told to do. You are preparing, and I see that in you. I have confidence in that in you. But I also am so excited to see you be placed in that position that God has for you, and be that person that you have felt that you were for your whole entire life. There's a time that is going to actually come to fruition, and I'm here for it, man. And everybody that's around you becomes better. You're not only a champion, but you're a mentor to champions. You're a leader among leaders. You're a king among kings, and I love it, man. And I'm so thankful I get a front row seat to it, because you're just a person that. So it's going to be fireworks, man. Your life is going to be incredible, and I'm so thankful to have you not only in my family, but also in my life as a son-in-law and a mentor to the people that are closest to me, being my son, my nieces and nephews, and people all around us. So thank you so much, Silas, for doing what you do, being who you are. We're here for it. We want you to continue to fight for success. And we're going to check back in, because we know we got plenty of championships in the future to be talking about. So thank you so much for all you do, dude. Any closing thoughts? Where can people find you? How can we get a hold of you?
Yeah, you, hit me up on my socials. Yeah, Instagram, Twitter. Get a hold of me there. Want to find me? I'm in Lincoln, man. I'll be in Lincoln working out. I'll be in Lincoln training. So
that's it.
So yeah, that's a spot. But yeah, man, it's been awesome. I appreciate you giving me the opportunity.
Love you,
super
brother.
Cool. I love you too, man. It's
all right,
awesome.
Man. That's it.
Yep.
All right. We out.
Let's go.
I've heard life is an illusion. Life is an illusion. Life is an illusion. But my life's been real. You know? Real. Daddy was a gangster. Daddy was a soldier. Daddy had the weight of the world on his two shoulders. I guess it's a little different when you're walking it out. You know? That's my life. I'm feeling lost here, everywhere I walk here, my life's in the crosshairs. I'm off my square, but everybody's off there. Skeletons in the closet, I'm dusting off the cobwebs. People's presumably thinking I'm who I used to be, but this community's full of hypocritical lunacy. The pain brutally molded a man beautifully, but still it's hard for me to humanly handle the scrutiny. Cause mom and daddy always said I'd be a millionaire, but when that dream disappeared, it was if they never cared. Beware, when you're deep in despair, nobody's there. Better say your prayer before your damage beyond repair. I squandered multiple scholarships, and the consequence was turning major league prominence into prison politics. But I was only 19 and I had other plans, but that's a life that most of y'all will never understand. I can't be everything you want me to be, but it's my life. I gotta move on. My life. Your opinions don't mean nothing to me. Cause in my life, all I can do is be me. Solidified veteran, music is my medicine, what a wonderful sedative. Flesh void of melanin, that's a delicate element, but still relevant to my growth and development. So I toast the skeletons dwelling in elegance, and y'all can save the slick talk cause it insults my intelligence. This time you heard the story of pain and purgatory. Bitter cold blood was freely flowing through my circulatory. Greater war stories in laboratories, the crematorium burns glory on the path before me. An army of soldiers with spread wings lamented the king. The hands of time stand still while the pendulum swings. I articulated my place in this crooked republic. The coward shot me in both legs, the buttocks and twice in the stomach. But show my resume and speak for itself. I don't need co-signers, I can speak for myself. My life, I can't be everything you want me to be, but it's my life. I gotta move on. My life. Your opinions don't mean nothing to me. Cause in my life, all I can do is be me. All I can do is be me. All I can do. Daddy was a gangster, daddy was a soldier. Daddy had the weight of the world on his two shoulders. Cause in my life, all I can do is be me. I'll never be the best, never be the realest rapper, but so I'll never be a slouch and never be an actor. I'll never close my eyes to the lies and let it ride. I'll never say never if never will never survive. I'll never disguise any music or popular vibe. I'll just be me and let all you people decide. And man, I'll never be better than you. That'll never be the truth, man, I'm better than you. I'll never glamorize the streets, never dodge all the daggers I've gathered through all the years from these cowards and backstabbers. I'll never be anything except the man I'm born to be. Cause if you can't stand on it, you're flirting with forgery. I'll never trust a smile, never break another vow. Being took advantage of is something I'll never allow. And even if I never make it to the top, man, I promise you I'll never stop. Like it or not, it's my life. I can't be everything you want me to be, but it's my life. I gotta move on. My life. Your opinions don't mean nothing to me. Cause in my life, all I can do is be me. All I can do is be me. All my life. All my life. If it looks too hard, you try it. Your body says no, you defy it.